Back in February, I made a video about the evolution of Street Fighter's interface, and a bunch of you guys were wondering what I thought about Smash's interface because it's so wildly different from that of Street Fighter's. Which is a very good question, actually. So, in honor of Brawl's 5th anniversary as of last March... Wow, 5th anniversary? It's already been that long? Jeez. In honor of Brawl's 5th anniversary, we're talking some Smash. That sounds so awkward. So Smash is a very hard topic to cover because there are so many different ways to play Smash competitively.
Massive disclaimers.
And it changes so drastically between every game. And some higher level matches don't even resemble lower level matches, and stock matches are different from time matches, which are different from time stock matches. Don't even get me started on items, and then you have moves that have random properties, but then you have the hacks, which... No edge! No edge. All of this being said, there are common mechanics between each Smash game, and these mechanics remain more or less intact regardless of settings.
Massive disclaimers.
So I'll try my best to just talk about those. Keep in mind that I am painting with a very wide brush here, due to the subject matter, so I'm going to need some wiggle room here and there.
Massive disclaimers.
Also, I'm going to talk about the series from the point of view of the developers. Even though techniques such as wave dashing are fundamental to advanced play in certain Smash games, remember that a lot of these are either glitches or exploits, and the designers had no clue they even existed, and thus no reason to really take them into account when they were designing the game. Alright, so with those
massive disclaimers
out of the way, let's dig in. So is Smash just being different for the sake of being different, or is there some reason as to why its interface is so dissimilar? If you haven't seen the life bar video I mentioned earlier, I suggest you watch that because it lays a lot of groundwork for what I'm going to talk about here. One major thing I'd like to point out is that damage plays a much different role in Smash than it does in Street Fighter 2. In Street Fighter 2, damage is the sole deciding factor on which player wins. Even when time runs out, the player with more damage loses. At its core, it's rock'em sock'em robots. If you hit your opponent enough times with any attack at all, they die and you win. The end. Everything is dead. Smash is much like a Nintendized version of sumo wrestling, where the goal is not to deplete your opponent's life bar, it's to knock your opponents off the stage more times than they knock you off. The scoreboard doesn't much care if you're at 0 damage or 600, it's only concerned with players falling outside the stage's boundaries. You can absorb 3 times the amount of damage your opponent absorbs, and they can still lose. This just doesn't happen in Street Fighter 2. Now don't misunderstand me, damage does play a role, by making you fly further proportional to the amount of damage you take, but it's a much more passive role than the one it plays in Street Fighter. It can almost be thought of as a different mechanic entirely. Also, the amount of punishment a Smash character can take over the course of a match is ridiculous when compared to Street Fighter. Counting 0, Smash gives you 1000 hit points before your damage is maxed. And, for very good design reasons, most attacks deal less than 1% of damage to that total amount. Contrast this with Street Fighter 2, where, provided it's not blocked, any attack any character does is guaranteed to deal more than 1% of damage. This, along with the differing roles that damage plays, fundamentally alters the amount of time it takes to win a match in each game, which drastically changes the pacing.
Which is important.
A typical round of Street Fighter 2 lasts less than a minute, where standard stock matches of Smash can last twice as long. Because of Street Fighter 2's comparatively shorter matches, the players need to put the bulk of their attention on the action and spend less time up top. So finding a lightning quick and super simple way of displaying all the necessary information without disrupting the pacing was a must. Smash's pacing is much different from Street Fighter 2's, however. Due to its mechanics, it tends to take a much slower and deliberate pace, so a lightning fast way of displaying information isn't anywhere near as important. Couple this with damage itself behaving differently, and a change in interface might not be a bad idea. In my other video, I praised Street Fighter 4 when it made a single minute change to its mechanics and reflected this change in its interface. Well, I feel confident when I say that all of these fundamental changes that Smash makes to the usual formula would definitely warrant a few changes. If you were to use life bars, most attacks would only take slivers off at a time, and you'd almost always die before your life bar drained all the way, which might be perceived as a bit counterintuitive and just awkward. Also, as a result of Smash's mechanics, it becomes incredibly useful to know the exact amount of damage you and your opponent have, because different attacks can become incredibly dangerous once you've crossed certain damage thresholds. As an example, at 0 damage, even a fully charged arrow from Pit is no huge deal. At exactly exactly 294 damage, things become much different. Pit's arrow can KO a medium-sized character no problem if it's fully charged, so numbers might just be the way to go. And since Smash's pacing is much slower to begin with, you don't have to worry about it bogging the play experience down like it would in Street Fighter. As for why the damage meters are at the bottom and not the top, this is also a result of damage playing a different role. In Smash, characters are sent flying through the air and have to recover all the time, so aerial combat carries much more emphasis. As a result, it just makes sense to place the damage meters at the bottom. The meters are also in order from left to right, respective to the controller ports, because it builds upon established mental connections. I'm player 3, my controller is on port 3, it makes sense that my meter would be the third one over. I do have issues with the timer placement though. I really just don't get it. Yeah, got nothing. So, on a surface level, these two games might look similar enough, but if you go deeper and look at the underlying mechanics, you'll notice a few notable differences, and these differences in mechanics have a huge impact on the final play experience. So much so that a change in interface is almost inevitable. It's like if you take two ships that are en route to the same harbor, but you turn one just 3 degrees clockwise before they set sail. At the start of the voyage, it looks like they might end up at about the same place, but if you actually follow everything through to its conclusion, you find that the two ships end up in drastically different places. And you might need different maps? I don't know, I think you guys get the analogy though, you're smart. And it's here that a lot of us start asking the question. Because of all the changes Smash makes to the usual fighting game formula, and the consequences that these changes have, can Smash be considered a fighting game?
I'm a giant squid of anger.
Alright, you guys watching this video, your comments tend to be awesome, you're awesome, I trust you not to start a flame war. You guys are cooler than that.
It's the frickin' internet, and you're talking about Smash. What else do you expect?
I don't know, reasonable, respectful, and open discussion.
Then go home and watch a TED Talk.
So I don't think this is a particularly good question, and I'm only bringing it up because I know it's going to be asked in the comments if I don't address it here. So, whether or not Smash can be considered a fighting game is more of a question of semantics rather than design, and it's dependent on a few factors. 1. What is your definition of a fighting game? 2. How far is a game allowed to stray from that definition before it's no longer considered a fighting game? This is one of those personal things, and everybody has a different cutoff point, so by nature, very few people are going to agree. Which is fine, because it's not a very important question to begin with. The conversation shouldn't be about whether or not Smash fits into a specific genre, but rather what Smash does and how good it is at doing what it does. Game genres are weird anyway. Like, sometimes we distinguish between genres based on the camera angle alone, regardless of how much or little this actually affects the play experience. But I've digressed. Smash makes some key changes to the usual formula, and it recognizes these changes and mirrors them in its interface design, which is a great design decision in my book. It also allows itself to be a great party game or a very solid competitive game, depending on how you, the player, wish to play it. Which is awesome, but whether you love it, hate it, play it, shelf it, I think we can all agree on one thing. Slipping is just freaking stupid. Hey guys, Ronnie Edwards here.
I'd rather brush my teeth with mercury than watch your intro again.
Jeez, dude. If you liked the video, you can watch more here. I suggest you check out the Game Theory episode on Zelda power-ups. If you've ever wondered about real-life power bracelets or blue potions, you're gonna want to check it out. Also, I make somewhat of a cameo in it, so that's cool. Brushing your teeth with mercury? How would that even work?